Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome in. It's a On Texas Football Tuesday night live stream and live conversation. It's going to be a lively hour plus of Texas football talk, and appreciate everybody joining us as they do each Tuesday, off wins and off losses. And obviously it wasn't the optimal performance and the optimal outcome from Saturday night, 30-15, Georgia over Texas. But we have to turn the page and move forward. CJ Vogel, Rod Babers, and myself, Aaron Hogan, ready to roll here on a Tuesday night, as we are every Tuesday. There's William in here. Hook 'em, guys. Got to get back on track. And Rod, you know this. I mean, coaches talk about it ad nauseum. Don't get too high, don't get too low. I mean, there's no reason to be too high after 259 to 38 and 6-0, and there's no reason to get too far down because of a loss where a lot of the things that we saw on Saturday were fixable. And you played a really inspired, motivated, angry Georgia team that you probably won't see a more talented team on the field until you play that team again, most likely. So what's your mindset as a player and turning the page and going to the next week?
Oh, back to basics. The honeymoon phase of the season is over. That's all good. I mean, that happens to every team. You get slapped in the face, so get punched in the mouth. It's all about how you respond to adversity. This team's got really good football character. I'm not worried about how they're going to respond to adversity. And adversity is presenting itself in different ways, right? You got the quarterback conversation happening. The first loss to Georgia, the offensive line's got some issues they got to fix. Money down, third, fourth down. How you going to get Quinn into a groove? How do you get Quinn in a rhythm early? How do you get him off to a good start? So they got a lot of different things that they got to fix right this week. They got out-coached. They got out-schemed. They got outplayed. It's just that simple. But the good news is you got out-coached, out-schemed, outplayed by the standard of college football, and it has been for the last 4 or 5 years. And my prediction is Texas will see Georgia 4 to 5 times over the next 2 years. It's been my prediction from the jump because I think Texas is ascending toward that standard of college football. Georgia's already established themselves as the standard. And as the great Ric Flair once said, to beat a man, you got to beat the man. And if you want to be the standard of college football, you're going to have to beat Georgia, period. Yeah. Point blank. Ain't no way of avoiding it. All right. So that was a good barometer to see how close you are to the standard of college football. But for Texas, just got to get back to work. And I think, ultimately for them, it's got to be something that the leadership's got to step up in the locker room now. This is when the leadership steps up, when you have adversity, when you have to kind of reestablish your identity as a team, as a program, when you have to reassert your football character. This is when I expect the leadership to step up for Texas. And that includes Quinn, by the way. That includes Quinn. He's in a natural leadership position. Coach has already told him, you are the guy. It is your team still. You're the starting quarterback. So I know that he's going through some things, of course. That's traumatizing for any player to get benched. Trust me, it never happened to me, but, man, I've happened to a lot of guys, and it's a traumatizing experience. No matter, even if you get your job back, whatever, it's just a hit to your confidence. It's going to be up to him to work through that and then still be able to be a leader for the team because everybody's looking at him to be an example. And everybody's watching him, by the way. Everybody's watching to see, how Quinn responds to this situation. That's going to be a great example to set for the team. If he can have overcome his own individual adversity, I think it will inspire the team to overcome, kind of the team adversity, which is overcoming their first loss of the season.
Yeah, I didn't play at a high level of football like Rod did, CJ, but we talked last Tuesday about the first 6 games are kind of like open book, open note exams, and then you close all the books, you put all the notes away, and you go play. And I felt like it kind of hit Texas in the face a little bit. That I think we've all been there as far as an academic side, where it's like, oh, geez, I kind of know all this, but it's coming too fast right now. But you don't fail the semester because you failed the midterm. You know what I mean? You get back up and you, as you said, Rod just said, get back to basics, keep plowing away, because I do think there's football at the end of the day is an individual matchup. It's you against your guy. It's you against wherever your position is. And they lost a lot of those individual battles. So from Quinn on down, everybody's got to look at that and say, the fundamentals. I mean, all the things that my coaches are telling me about footwork and hand placement and ball get off and all these things, it all has to, maybe it reinforces for the players that, okay, that's what that looks like when you play a heavyweight. That's what that looks like when the notes are put away and the book is closed. I gotta get back on point. And that's all you can do to get better is, as Mac Brown used to say, Rod, circle the wagons. Don't let one loss beat you twice, and get back and ready for a Vanderbilt team that is really scrappy and will fight the hell out of you.
Damn right. Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, to your point about going back to the basics, I'd hate to have been I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall. I would hate to have been a player. in that room for Kyle Flood this weekend after what went down with that Georgia defensive line. Again, just going back and rewatching that game a few times, Georgia was tremendous with their scheme and their approach defensively. They gave Texas a number of different looks. They had a cover 4 shell for the majority of their snaps, but they very rarely played a cover 4, right? They would spin to a cover 3. They would play cover 2 man. They would play a cover 1 with a robber, right? There was all sorts of different variables and, different looks that they provided out of the same base look, which isn't easy. And I think you only see that at the NFL level. And we see why young quarterbacks at the NFL level, Rod and Aaron, struggle so early in their careers because they can't diagnose it on the fly. Yep. They have NFL level talent like the Georgia defense did, then it makes things very difficult. And that's not to totally excuse Quinn or the Texas offense, because let's not forget, Texas is expected to be in that conversation with Georgia this year, right? They were number 1 in the country coming into this game. They had hopes of winning the Joe Moore Award trophy. Quinn Ewers had hopes of winning the Heisman Trophy. So it's not totally excusable to just sit back and say that the Georgia defense is good, but they are. Now it's up to Texas to go in, diagnose some of the issues, get better, and luckily they have a lot of opportunities to get back where they want to be going over the next 2 weeks before they start hitting some rivals. That game against Florida is going to be really tough in my eyes. And fortunately for Texas, they'll have a young quarterback to face off against with a really talented defense on their side.
Rod, it's interesting because during the in-game watch-along, we were talking about because I thought Pete Kwiatkowski and his defense did a great job confusing Carson Beck and making him make throws that he'd like back. I mean, we saw that 3 interceptions and right at 50% completions. But the difference was they could run the ball a little bit. I mean, Travis Etienne was able to gouge Texas for some yards. It wasn't like a huge game, but it was 99 yards. It was 5-6 yards a pop. Texas has to get back to that. I mean, to me, that's something you've got to, when you get back to basics this week and into the bye week. I mean, as we said on the in-game watch, it kind of felt like this is the first time you were like, we could use CJ Baxter right now to hump it up in there. And I think that's kind of something they got to get back to. Maybe it's Jarrett Gibson getting more reps. Maybe it's Wisner. But that really was a huge difference in the game because Texas was so behind the chains because they couldn't get even a yard or 2 on first down on a run or any time on a run. Whereas Georgia was able to get 4 or 5 yards on these running plays to keep it more friendly for their quarterback, friendly for their offense. And I really thought that was a big difference in them. One of the big differences in the game.
Yeah. I mean, that's why a big reason why Texas was 2 of 15 on third downs in that game. Because a lot of those were third and long situations. That's why Georgia was able to pin their ears back and get into these very exotic pressure packages and get 7 sacks and 10 tackles for loss because they knew Texas was in a predictable passing situation for most of that game, especially after they got down. So there's no question. I was talking to Alex Okafor about this, and shout out to the third and Longhorn crew with Jeremy Hills and Fozzie Whitaker, and Derek Johnson and Nick Shuley and the crew. And he said that, Texas didn't run their first split wide zone, basically, which was their bread and butter money play versus Oklahoma. All right, your 46-yard touchdown by Trey Wisner, that was on the split wide zone. The one where he fumbles and Silas Bowden ends up recovering in zone, that big 30-something yard run, that was the split wide zone. Basically, your 3 of your biggest runs of that game from running backs, all right, because Wingo had the end it around. But your 3 longest running back runs were the split wide zone. And it's also from last season, you go track it, it was probably the featured bread and butter money play for Texas in terms of their favorite concept in the running game. And you didn't see it till, Alex Okafor said he didn't see it till the third quarter. When they came out after making all their adjustments. Now, a lot of that is, Sark admitted, game plan went out the window. He threw out the game plan, which, by the way, happens in football all the time. I tell you how many times I've been on the sideline. We practice a game plan all week long. And then after the second or third drive, Carl Maurice comes on the sideline and goes, "All right, gentlemen, we're throwing out the game plan." I'm like, what the hell? We just worked out all week long. We're throwing out the game plan. It was a terrible game plan. He threw it out. And I think Sark did that, right? He just threw out the game plan, which makes perfect sense. Whatever they planned was not working. Georgia had a much better game plan. They made some adjustments in the second half. But the running game is truly a concern for me because, I think the strength of the team is the passing game. That's the weapons you got on offense. I mean, look at Gunnar Helm and sort of deep at wide receiver. And it was the pass blocking, capability of the offensive line, which is one of the best in the country, and your deep quarterback room. But when Quinn's off, when Quinn's not the best version of himself, I'm not sure you want to lean into that. I'm not sure you want to be so lopsided in your approach and, have your early down pass rate be 65, 70%. I still think that's the strength. And Sark has admitted that's why he's talked about Bill Walsh and how he closes games out with the run, but he likes to throw early in game and on early downs. And I still think that's the way he wants to go. But life and football are constant struggles, deciding between what you want to be and what you need to be. And right now, when Quinn's struggling, just like in Oklahoma game, Sark wanted to pivot. He pivoted to the running game in the Oklahoma game because Quinn was a little off. And in the Georgia game, there was no pivot. The running game wasn't working. You was getting 1.1 yards a carry. There was no pivot. All you had was Quinn, and you had to make it work. And I think that's why he went to Arch. He's like, I got nothing. My Quinn's off. My offensive line can't pass block right now. And my run game ain't working. I got nothing to pivot to. Arch, go out there and just try to spark something, go make something happen. Because I got nothing right now. And he went to the halftime and made some subtle adjustments. And we talked about the CJ, the 12 personnel. That seemed to be something he was more comfortable with. Working against Georgia, they went to some targets to motion. That was your first touchdown. Isaiah Bond that corn dog play, and then Golden had a big 20-something yard reception. That was a target to motion. He found some things in the second half, but when you ain't got no running game and you're that lopsided and you're that one-dimensional, there's going to be problems, especially when your quarterback's not playing well. So you got to get the running game going some type of way. I don't know how you juice it. I think 12 personnel is how Stark believes is the best way to juice the running game, though, to add that extra gap in body.
Yeah, I agree 100% on 12 personnel, and I actually went through the numbers earlier today, Rod. I teased it last night and went through it today over at On Texas Football. Texas had 24 snaps and 12 personnel. They averaged 6.09 yards per snap, and whenever you add in the penalties, so the net yardage, because there's a 15-yard penalty on the defensive pass interference on Ryan Wingo, and there's an 8-yard face mask penalty on Trey Wisner in the red zone. How about 7 yards flat out of 12 personnel per snap? That's not bad, right? When you find ways to move the ball when you normally can't move the ball, you normally lean into that. If they play again, I would look for a heavy 12 personnel set, and I'm not sure why it was so successful. I don't know why, it was working so well, but Texas had 4 of its 8 explosive plays out of 12 personnel as well. 3 passes, 1 run. So it's interesting because, Juan Davis has been good for Texas. I wouldn't say he's necessarily been a game changer, but with him on the field in that game on Saturday, Texas certainly found some sort of rhythm that it otherwise did not have. So, again, 6.09 yards per snap in 12 personnel. You add in the penalty yardages, and Texas is up to 168 yards over 24 snaps for 7 yards per snap. Think they found something later? I don't know. Yeah. We'll see.
Good stuff, CJ.
I think that's really good. That's great analysis. And that's because I mean, as Rod said, the game plan got thrown out the window early. Sark was just trying to get to halftime, almost like a boxer trying to get to the end of the round and take a breath. But it did look better in the second half, whatever the adjustments were, and you kind of build on that. And we talked about it in the real-time live stream, Rod, in the game. That 89-yard touchdown drive off the goal line when Texas pulled to within 8, Kirk Herbstreit this week put out that it was his drive of the year so far in college football because, if Texas gets a stop there on that third down play, you can stay balanced. You can stay in those concepts that were working and keep Georgia on the ropes a little bit when they not only got off the goal line but took it down and put it in the end zone on fourth down. Then you have to abandon all that, and you're playing 2-minute offense essentially, as we talked about, with 6 minutes to play. You got to. And then they can pin their ears back and come right after you. Who knows if Texas gets stopped there? I know the fans can debate about, is more one-sided than it looked. Texas, if they get a stop there, who knows? Down 8 points with most of the fourth quarter to play, we'll never know the answer. But that, to me, that's to kind of the point. How do you build on what worked and work on that for the next time you play Georgia? Because you might want to lean back into some of that stuff. But this week it's Vanderbilt. Well, we'll come back. I want to get because one of the people that have to look themselves in the mirror is Sark, right? Sark got pantsed by his buddy Kirby in a bad way, so he's got to reassess some of that. But I think the biggest question moving forward for me is how do you get Quinn back on track? So let's talk about that coming up, and then we'll talk about Vanderbilt and the junkyard dogs that they are, especially at quarterback. But Rod, tell them about Hargrove Roofing, and I know there was an event with them this week with On Texas Football. We appreciate them very much.
No doubt about it. Yes, very excited that our friends at Hardgrove Roofing, part of the Owen, Texas football family. Yes, we had a Bert Auburn autograph signing at the Hole in the Wall. It went really well. So thanks to our friends over at Hardgrove Roofing. They have offices all over Louisiana, Arkansas, and of course the great state of Texas, including Austin, Texas, right here. And they have great partnerships with lifetime Longhorns like Bert Auburn. Lifetime Longhorn Stevie Lee joins us on the winning drive on Mondays, courtesy of Hardgrove Roofing as well. They are the most pro burnt orange roofing company out there. You won't find a company out there that loves the Longhorns more than Hardgrove Roofing, folks. And also right now they're offering you a free roof inspection. So if you got something going on with your roof, or maybe you don't know what's going on with your roof, well, our friends at Hardgrove Roofing, they can help you out either way. A free roof inspection, that's free $99. You won't beat that price anywhere else. That's hardgroveroofing.com, 512-645-3202. Go visit hardgroveroofing.com and you can ask for a free roof inspection if you need somebody to come out. Know who's on your roof with Hardgrove Roofing.
Thank you, Rod. Okay, thank you, Hargrove, too. Hey, guys, how do you get Quinn Ewers back on track, I think, is a huge question because, again, it wouldn't be as much of a discussion if we hadn't seen Quinn looking phenomenal in the first 3 games before the injury. I mean, even before we saw the Michigan game, of course, he's rolling to his right, throwing. I just think about DeAndre Moore, that touchdown pass that got called back in the Michigan game, the stepping up in the pocket and hitting Garrett Gunnar Helm for a touchdown, the rolling to his left, throwing across his body to Marcus Golden at the end of the first half. I mean, these were elite level throws, and we saw it the first couple games, and then even into the UTSA game before the injury, he was making some really good throws. And since he's come back, I think we've all seen it, and it just takes me to wonder, is he able to go full bore in practice even? Is he, because he's still, is this the Quinn they're seeing in practice, Rod? And CJ is the question. Is it the guy that looks like, I'm sure he's wearing a green penny in practice. He's wearing the green jersey, not taking hits. But that's got to be a key. You got to get him back to, because as you call him on the broadcast on the in-game, Rod, mullet Quinn, right? He's back to being bad footwork, not stepping into throws, throwing off his back foot, those kind of things. If you're Sark and you are the quarterback whisperer, guys, how do you get him? What's the key to getting him back on track? Because I do think that stomach is still bothering him a little bit, or he's thinking about it a little bit. There's something there, but they can't be the team they want to be if you don't get him back to playing like he was back in early September.
Yeah, that's got to be the key. And for Sarkisian, as the quarterback guru, as the quarterback whisperer, whatever you want to call it, the guy with the big brain offensively, this has to be your utmost number one priority to get Quinn healthy, or just to back confident, right? I don't know if the stomach or the abdomen is still bothering him. I was told it would be. I was told that it wouldn't be. So it's kind of up in the air. I think the only person who truly knows is Quinn himself. But with that said, you're going to be the quarterback at the University of Texas. It's like being the quarterback of the Cowboys. It's like being the shortstop of the Yankees. You're going to get a lot of unwarranted criticism. You're going to get, heralded with praise whenever you do stuff that maybe it goes to other people, right? That's part of the job. It's part of the territory, as Steve Sarkisian would say. But for Quinn, the last 2 weeks, the number one most concerning thing to me is it's been timid. Quinn's played very timid. You can't play football in the SEC timid. You can't play football against good defenses. Oklahoma and Georgia each have one, timid. And I think that stems from that injury. I think that stems from that lack of confidence. First play against Oklahoma, he gets sacked. That rest of that first quarter, he didn't look like he was that quarterback that we saw go 14 of 16 against ULM and light Ann Arbor on fire, right? That wasn't the quarterback that we had seen previously. I don't know what it's going to take, but it's going to have to take Sarkisian and Ewers to sit down and say, what works right now? What do you like to do? What can we get you to accomplish on the field without having to put your body through too much strain? Otherwise, the conversation extends beyond what we're having right now, and that's for the rest of the season. I don't want to go down that road at all because I do think Quinn is a very talented quarterback. I do think that he's capable of playing better football of what we've seen the last 2 weeks. And even then, it's been bad, but it's not been atrociously terrible. It's been bad. It's been probably the 2 worst stretch games that we've seen from Quinn. But second half, he threw for about 190 yards. It wasn't terrible. Like, he's finding ways somehow, some way, even in his worst, to move the rock a little bit. It just has to be more consistent, and it definitely has to be earlier in the game to come out and find ways to move the ball and get points on the board. And with that, he needs his offensive line to protect him, and he needs his wide receivers and pass catchers to catch the football.
I wonder the injury, because I'm with you. I think there's something stemming from the injury. We don't severity of it. I'm not sure how much of it lingers. Pain tolerance. I don't know any of that. But it just, when we're looking at the really the way the events have laid out and things have played out, like it tracks that something happened after he was injured, and he hasn't been the same quarterback since then. And I know they don't want to acknowledge that it is an injury, but I do think there's something there, because I'm starting to think about the deep balls that he's thrown the last 2 games too.
Not good.
They've been worrisome, right? You remember these deep balls that he's throwing? They are kind of underthrown deep balls, where they very duckish deep balls.
Yeah, Rod, it makes me wonder if he could even clear 50 with his deep throw right now. Like, that was the big thing with Quinn coming out of high school. He has an unlimited arm. He can throw anywhere on the field. And this past couple of weeks, we've not seen him air it out. We don't normally see him throw it deep, but when he's attempted it, they've been 5-10 yards underthrown. That was a heck of an adjustment by Matthew Golden. The DPI on Wingo is because it was underthrown.
Mm-hmm.
It's not been pretty throwing the ball down the field, and I think a little bit of that is because the torque might be uncomfortable right now on the interior.
That kind of goes back to the point that you made, CJ, that they got to get together and they just got to figure out, all right, what can he do? What can he accomplish now? What can he achieve with limitations potentially? Whether that's injury or whether that's a mental block, whatever it is. Like, what can Quinn do consistently? And you need to do that, like you said, early in the game, so that you establish confidence with him and you establish a rhythm with him. Quinn, we all know Quinn's good when he's in a rhythm, right? He's good when he's in a rhythm, when he's in a groove, and he's on that offense is on schedule, which means they're ahead of the chains, not behind the chains, and not off schedule. So not off schedule plays. I don't want off schedule plays with Quinn. Hey, I was fine with him off scheduling versus Michigan because he looked great when he had to, extend plays and avoid pressure. He didn't look great trying to do that versus Georgia. Didn't look great trying to do that versus Oklahoma, where he's trying to. So I don't know if I want that. I want him on schedule. I want him on time. And I think that's going to be up to Sark to design these first read wide window throws for Quinn that are almost schemed open. And Sark does this. He doesn't do it as much with Sark as a third-year starting quarterback. But I think now you may need more of those. And when I talk about targets to motion, that's most of the time that's what targets to motion are. They're schemed open first read wide window throws for Quinn. And that's why in the game versus Georgia in the second half, 4-4 on those targets to motion. Didn't have any in the first half, but it's something Georgia struggles with, but it's something also that it can engineer matchup advantages, but also give you leverage advantages on, when receivers are running routes. And DBs, trust me, I'm a DB, hate defending guys who are in motion. I hate it. I did it in Canada. I did it in the NFL. I hate it. It's always tough to do to defend a dude who's already running. Period. All right. So I think ultimately those are kind of the throws I'm talking about, schemed open throws for him early. And then I think you just give him more solutions. He's obviously got check downs, but I think you might need to start bringing some of those route combinations closer to the short and flooding the short to intermediate area with some of these route concepts. I know you don't want to just forsake the deep ball, but I do wonder if teams are even going to respect your ability to throw it deep.
Georgia didn't. They sat with their heels dug in and said, you know what, if you want to throw it deep, be my guest, because we have not seen that successfully this year or really consistently throughout Quinn's entire career, really. Again, 11 passes were at or behind the line of scrimmage. 9 were completed. They went for 27 total yards. That's really been a big focal point of the Steve Sarkisian offense. Yeah. That's been with every quarterback that he's had. They throw the ball early. They get it out to an Xavier Worthy, an Isaiah Bond, a Jerry Jeudy, a Jalen Waddle. They get the ball out early to these guys, and they let them work with the ball in their hands. And that's not been, or at least it wasn't successful against Georgia, because these guys sat back about 7 yards down the field. They read the eyes of the quarterback. They saw the shoulders turn, the ball start to get moving, and they just bumped down the field. And I liked what Georgia did to create air yardage for Carson Beck. He wasn't good. Let's not forget that. He wasn't good in this game either. 3 picks, 175 yards, 56%. Where did most of those yards come from? A third of his yards came on a pump and go, on a fake screen and go for 21 yards, and it was a double reverse flea flicker, right? They found ways to create open yards for the quarterback. Texas tried that as well, and they got a look for a wide open running back with about 30 yards to go in front of them, and the ball was dropped. So, again, that's where I start to wonder, because with Quinn, if that ball is completed and Texas gets to the 10-yard line, do they score? I would assume at least a field goal, then you're up 3-0. Then you start to play that field position game once again. With that ensuing drive, Georgia punts back to the Texas 5-yard line. Texas has to get a first down. They get out to about the 13. That's where the strip sack comes in, the first one, which Quinn and Steve Sarkisian confirmed after the game. He believed that he had protection there. Mm-hmm. Is that Quinn's fault? You could argue he could have got the ball out earlier, but a corner blitz from the boundary route, I mean, those things get up on quarterbacks pretty darn quickly, especially when they're assuming that their protection is going to stand up to the backside. So you start looking at things differently. If that ball is caught, if that protection is made, is it that bad of a game? Do you find a rhythm? I don't know. It's not easy to, ponder about this because then you start to get into hypotheticals. But those two plays right there could have certainly altered the way that game was seen because of a lack of plays made outside of Quinn's, control.
Yeah, that's 100% true. I mean, and that's why each game you rip it up and you move on to the next. You really do. I mean, you cannot dwell on it. But you got to learn from it. We know that. And I think the things you guys just said, I think that are interesting. The most interesting is Clark Lee at Vanderbilt's a really good defensive mind. I mean, he's going into this game in Nashville on Saturday, he's going to make Quinn Ewers beat him a couple times down the field before he believes it, right? I mean, that's just going to be the case. And, he doesn't have the personnel Georgia has, but he's going to make him throw some deep balls. And, because every time – because you saw that's why the first half calamity was for Texas. Kind of felt like Georgia – and Jerry Hamilton was saying this on the in-game watch-along, they're going to they'll give you the outside deep balls. You can go ahead, Quinn, if you want it, but not giving you the middle of the field. And they're going to jump everything at the line of scrimmage. And all those little things that normally work aren't going to be there. And they couldn't beat them. Clark Lee can see that even without those Georgia players. And at least early, they got to show they can. And here's the thing with Quinn and the injury. After the game, Quinn Ewers, in his little interview, I think he might have been there, CJ, he said, they asked, is the injury still bothering you? He said, the quote was like, well, yeah, it's still there, he said. But it's not affecting me. Maybe it's between my ear. Maybe it's me. I don't know, but I got to get through it. It's not a big deal. He kind of minimized it, but he confirmed it was there. On Monday, you were at the press conference with Sark, and Sark was asked about it. Two things I think are very important. He said, because somebody asked, is he limited by the injury? And Sark said, no, he's not limited by the injury. But is he 100%? I don't know. Who on our team through 7 weeks is 100%? And almost like challenging Quinn, hey, you got to play through this. It might not be 100%, but no one on our team's 100%. Let's go. We need you to play through that. And then this morning on the radio show, we talked to his agent, Ron Slavin. And Ron, I asked him, is it still bother him? And he said, injuries like that just don't go away. But he's going to be fine, was essentially what he said. So 3 different people close to Quinn and Quinn saying, yeah, it's still there. It's still bugging him. So, again, can he rip it? Can he make the throws? Clark Lee, I mean, that's the key right now is I don't know. And that's why I wonder, is he able to go full speed even in practice or are they trying to make sure he doesn't? I don't know. I mean, it's an oblique injury, so you don't want to pull it again. These are really challenging things because it's as we've all agreed, it's the key to getting back on track and doing the things Texas wants to do in 2024.
Yep, that's why the O-line is big now, right? The O-line stepping up his heat. When you talk about the run game or pass protection and protecting Quinn, so that he at least has enough confidence to stand in the pocket, step up into the pocket, and make some of those throws. I think it's time for the O-line to step up and make themselves, kind of this basically an unstoppable force, right? They can impose their will on opponents, and you may not need to put so much burden on Quinn and the passing game to lead the way if the offensive line can be a dominant force, which the truth is they've been good. I'm not saying they have not. They have not been a force in the run game yet, though. You did lean on the run game to beat Oklahoma. You did. But I don't know if yet they've been a force in the running game. Moving some Georgia players around would have proven that was not the case. You averaged 1.1 yards per carry. So I think that to me, it may be something that can solve all your issues. It may make all this moot if your O-line starts performing at an even higher level.
Okay, guys, let's talk about Duck Camp real quick, Rod, and then we'll dive into some Vanderbilt and where they are. We'll certainly take your super chats and your questions on the On Texas Football Tuesday live stream. You're wearing the cool hat, Rod, which I like a lot, the trucker hat. Tell them about Duck Camp.
Love me some Duck Camp. Got some Duck Camp gear coming to the house. As a matter of fact, can't wait till it gets here. You should go check out their new fall selection. That's what I ordered from, and it was great. Duckcamp.com is where you go check it out for yourself. They produce premium outdoor goods for the outdoor spirit in all of us. Duck Camp is dedicated to providing the best outdoor goods so that you can outdoor good, whether you're an avid hunter or you're an avid fisherman, or whether you just, like me, prefer the camaraderie of the campsite, prefer to hang out around the campfire. It's all good. No matter which way you like to enjoy the great outdoors, Duck Camp is the brand for you. It's a brand that understands the culture of outdoor living and the good times and good friends that come along with living an outdoor lifestyle. Go check out duckcamp.com and really go select something from that new fall selection before it's all gone, because they got a lot of great items there. And trust me, they sell out quickly. Duckcamp.com.
All right, guys, on the On Texas Football live stream, let's not get too high or too low after big wins or big losses. We're keeping it even and getting back on track. Here's Lane with a great super chat. Rod has said the empty neutralized disguise in the secondary. What's the equivalent for disguise shifts in the front seven, Rod?
That is a great question, Lane. That is a great question. I'm not sure about that. I mean, maybe some heavier personnel groupings on offense can help you do that, but I don't know if it does the same that empty does. Empty, I think, may be the most stressful formation for a defense to have to defend, period. Especially when you put a dual threat a running quarterback behind it, right? That's your biggest play in the first half of that game was Arch Manning's 20-something yard run. He was an empty formation, if I'm not mistaken, and decided to take off. And then they put a spy on him. I'm not really sure about that, Lane. I got to do some research. That's a really good question about what you can do on offense to make a defensive front, to make them stagnant, to make them abandon disguise and have to give you a static look. I'm not sure about that. I'm going to ask around, Lane. I will, because that's one of the questions. That's a really good question, because that's what Georgia did, man. Georgia on the back end, they did it with flipping the coverages and flipping the safety looks, the middle of the field open, middle of the field closed. They kept mixing the coverage looks on the pre-snap disguise, and they made sure that nothing really matched. The pre-snap never matched the post-snap for Quinn. So a lot of times the reason that Quinn was holding on to the ball was because Quinn was just trying to process what he had already been able to diagnose pre-snap and seeing if it matched his post-snap diagnosis, which a lot of times with Kirby Smart, it did not. He gave him a different look pre and post in the secondary, but also in the front. There was a lot of stemming going on, a lot of movement in the front seven. But that's a great question, Lane. I'm not sure about that. I got to do some research.
Hey, Rod, were you surprised at how often Georgia went 5 wide against the Texas defense?
And they never threw it down the field. It was always like screens, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah, just widen them out and let either the linebacker or the offensive line get out in front and block, or use your speed, whatever they had to create. It's kind of like what Texas likes to do: go 5 wide to become a screen-oriented team.
Exactly.
I was surprised. I thought that was the most we'd seen a Texas opponent go 5 wide against Texas this year.
That's a good point. Yeah, well, they did a lot
for Carson Beck. Well, and Rod, it's a football theorist question, because I was thinking the same thing watching Texas, and then you and I are Texans fans watching the Texans play Green Bay the next day. You talked to me about, and our audience about compressed sets, right? Bringing everybody in close to the line of scrimmage. Kyle Shanahan staple, bringing your right. I mean, everybody's inside the hash marks essentially, so everything's close to the line. What I was watching the Packers do to Houston and sometimes Georgia, when everybody's close to the line, you can bring people they're close to the quarterback, right? They're close to the line of scrimmage. So you can, then I watched Detroit play Minnesota, and Ben Johnson's got his guys more spread out. It feels like to me, like and the DBs and everybody's got to spread out a little bit. I mean, it feels like if you major in compressed sets, the defense can kind of get a hold of that. Maybe you're a little versatile, because no one has attacked Ben Johnson or the Minnesota defense and Brian Flores like Ben Johnson did, and because they scored on 4 straight touchdown drives after falling down 10-0, and it was a little bit wider, which spread things out for Jahmyr Gibbs, and he got going. And then I'm watching the Texans at the same time with these compressed sets, and it felt like Jeff Hafley and the Packers could just attack everything from different angles with different people, and it really is tough. So and Sark likes those compressed sets too. He likes things in hashes. To me, that makes it easier on the defense at some level if they can get to your quarterback and disguise some things.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I mean, Sark likes it because it brings DBs into the run game, and DBs aren't great run defenders, so you can get one-on-one with a running back and a DB, and then boom, you can break one. Sark likes it because of that. He also likes it because it creates space on the outside, right? And you just create a ton of space on the outside with that condensed compressed set. And for a DB like me, I have to play it a certain way. I have to play it off. I can't be aggressive. I'm not going to play bump and run and get caught up in all the traffic and get rubbed and picked. So I'm going to play off, and I'm probably going to play with outside leverage because there's too much space outside I'm trying to defend. So Sark is already, or Shano, whoever does it, they can manipulate like how the defense is going to defend it, and they know how they're going to defend it. But you're right. I mean, Spags is famous for it too, Kansas City's defensive coordinator. When you get a compressed set, man, he brings DBs from all over the place. This guy's coming all over the damn place. And I'm with that. Is one of the drawbacks of it, right? It's one of the downsides of running those compressed condensed sets. And but Kirby, with what he did, he didn't even have to do it. And Kirby doesn't like to bring DBs very often. That's why that cornerback blitz was actually a tendency breaker for him. Kirby is on the record saying he doesn't like to blitz DBs very often because they're not good at it. And they're not good at it. Usually they give it away. That DB, number 6 for Georgia, he disguised it brilliantly. I mean, he never gave it away, never peeked inside. You never saw him get all fidgety. He was there, ball snap, boom. And he took a beeline and made the play. So that was a tendency breaker. And usually you don't see him bring DBs, and he didn't have to because he's got actual NFL caliber pass rushers there. So, yeah, the condensed compressed sets, I think for Sark, it is a conceptual signature. He does both. He has a healthy mix of both in there. And I do think if that was a problem, then Sark would go to a more spread out set. That wasn't your issue versus Georgia. They whipped you in condensed compressed sets. They whipped you when you spread them out. They whipped you with a 3-man line. They whipped you with a 4-man line. They whipped you when they blitzed 5. They whipped you when they went all 0 blitz. They just whipped you.
Yeah. That's what it was. Yeah, man in the mirror moment. That's a good team right there, too. The standard in college football, no doubt. All right. Before we get to Vanderbilt, CJ, tell us about the recruiting fallout. I mean, now we're 2 days post. Everybody's back home. Hopefully they got through the Austin airport at some point Sunday or Monday. What a nightmare. But what are we hearing from, 40 or 50, you got Jerry called it the recruiting weekend of the year. One game doesn't, determine these things. I'm sure they all had a good time. It was a great show. It was the scene was amazing. What are we hearing from the recruits that were in town?
Yeah, Jerry Hamilton and I talked about this on the recruiting breakdown earlier today. Again, recruits look at these games a little bit differently than us. As folks that analyze these games and as fans who watch them emotionally and are attached to the ultimate result, right? Recruits look at it in the sense that, maybe I could help in this instance. I really like this atmosphere. I really like this city. I really like what this university has to offer. And so far, a lot of the responses I've had, especially with some of the 2026 prospects, is that environment, that stadium buzz, everything that encapsulated that game Saturday is exactly what they were looking for and hoping to see out of the Texas-Georgia game. Again, a win would have been great. A win, especially in the 25 class when you're battling for a lot of guys out of the Georgia or the state of Georgia who are considering the Georgia Bulldogs. That would have been tremendous in that regard. But in the case of what you're trying to build here, it's a reason to come play at the University of Texas. And they accomplished that on Saturday with a top 5 matchup, the whole world watching, and a lot of folks really getting excited for that game. The buzz was tremendous. The stadium was awesome. There's a lot of folks, intrigued by the flyover, the fireworks, the drones, the twirlers, the smoke, everything that goes into a game at Texas was on display for 100+ recruits. It wasn't a bad showing in my eyes by the Texas recruiting department at all. And, of course, Joseph Mbaktu, the talented defensive lineman out of Georgia, decommitted from Florida. He was on an official visit earlier this weekend as well. So worth keeping an eye on him moving forward as well. There should be some other movement in the 26th class a little bit later on this year as well.
All right. Let me tell you real quick, and then we'll get into Vanderbilt and talk about Mark Saunders. Mark Saunders is 35 years, an all-state agent here in Central Texas. You are in good hands. Is all your stuff covered? Those are the important things. Insurance is, something you just have to have because we have a lot of stuff. We have cars, we have boats, we have houses. Sometimes some of you folks out there probably have lake houses and things of that nature. Is everything covered? Do you have everything under one umbrella? And Texas alum Mark Saunders, with 35 years of experience, will make sure you're covered. And he's the best. He's the only insurance agent you'll need. Everything from your home, your car, your boat, your motorcycle, RV, ATV. If you're looking for someone local who loves the Longhorns, and we'll be right there with you. give Texas All-State agent Mark Saunders' office a call tomorrow, 512-218-8571. That's 512-218-8571. So again, ask yourself, are you in good hands? Is all your stuff covered as you go to sleep tonight? More than 35 years of experience you will be with Texas alum Mark Saunders. Again, 218-8571. We appreciate his partnership every Tuesday here on the All Texas Football Channel. Mark's a great guy, and there you go. Texas alum in your hands. 35 years. Doing a great job. All right, guys, Vanderbilt. I think the headline for me is diving into Vandy. I know you have two, CJ and Rod. Do not sleep on this team. I mean, that would be the one thing. I mean, came out of SEC Media Days, and you were up there too, CJ, that, Clark Lee could kind of tell it was, he's 3 years in and going into his fourth year, and things were not going well. Two SEC wins the whole time. Was kind of on the ropes as far as a coach, and, really did something I think interesting. He kind of looked at the situation and said, I'm not going to have the athletes I had at Notre Dame, where he was the defensive coordinator. I'm not going to be able to win in the Premier Conference unless I do something different. And as you say, Rod, coaches are problem solvers. He went option. He brought Jerry Kill from New Mexico State, who brought his quarterback, Diego Pavia, who brought his offensive coordinator, Tim Beck, not the former Longhorn Tim Beck, different Tim Beck, but, still an offensive coordinator. And they went option. I mean, they kind of went military academy. And what they do, they also brought in 3 linemen through the portal. All their linemen are 4th, 5th, and 6th year guys. Yep. And they come downhill power with a quarterback could be a boxer if he wasn't a football player. And they come at you. And they're 5-2. They've already got wins over Alabama, Kentucky, Virginia Tech. I mean, they've got 2 losses. One was to a narrow loss that they, an SEC play to Missouri in overtime, who was a top 10 team at the time. And then they lost to,
Georgia State.
Yeah, yep. And that's the one, if you read the quotes from Clark Lee afterward, he said, we kind of reverted to the last couple of years. We had fumbles, and they've only turned the ball over twice all year. But I think they were both in that Georgia State game. So they protect the ball. They are great in time of possession. They have a quarterback who will fight you for every yard. And they're going to try to slow this game down and keep it close. And they've beaten Bama, they've beaten Kentucky, and they've beaten Virginia Tech already. Do not sleep on this Vanderbilt team.
Yep, they got a very specific style of play, right, CJ? They want. I mean, you talk about ball control. I think time of possession. They're like 11th in the country at time of possession, and they're top 10 in third down conversions. Yep. They're 13th in fourth down conversions. So keep the ball, convert, keep the ball, and slow the game down to a crawl to limit possessions. And that's pretty much a successful formula for them, right? It's been worked really well.
No, it's tremendous. They play their game, and they bring down others to play their game.
Exactly right.
It's an interesting style, but it works. You see that at times with the service academies, Aaron. I think you alluded that a little bit earlier, but that's exactly how they play football. And I think against Alabama, they had a 42-18 time of possession advantage.
Freaky.
To score 40 points for Alabama, I don't think folks realize how efficient of a offensive performance that was for Jalen Milroe in that game to score 40-plus points in 18 minutes. That's something special there. But you see what they wanted to do. They wanted to get on top, play their game, always be a score and a half ahead, because that means that they control what they can do offensively, and they're always forcing an opposing team to fight from behind. I tell you what, Clark Lee, as he watches Texas film, he's watching that Mississippi State game with a big old grin on his face. That first half saying, oh, you're telling me Mississippi State had 22 minutes of possession in that first half? Okay, I see where we can have some success here. He's watching that with a big, Grinch-level smile on his face. When the hair starts twirling at the top, he gets the cheeks curling too. He's got that devilish grin after watching that game, because that's going to be the recipe for success for Vanderbilt. They're not as athletic, they're not as talented, they're not as big, they're not as strong, but they run the ball very well. They don't turn the football over, and they force you to play their style.
Yep,
100%. And that Mississippi State. Well, and Rod, that's a trend Texas has to flip here. The slow starts, right? They had a slow start at Mississippi State, against Oklahoma, against Georgia. They cannot start slow against this team, especially on the road, where now all of a sudden that fan base, who's been mostly apathetic, is engaged and loves this team after the wins that they've already posted. They're into this group. It's not a huge stadium, but still, you want to keep that crowd out of it. They have to have a really good start and really good. This is one of those, coming off the two really emotional games with Oklahoma and Georgia. This is kind of a mental game for Texas. You've got to be can't have penalties, can't have turnovers, giving up the ball. I mean, CJ mentioned it about, Alabama. I mean, as Sark said on Monday, they only had 48 plays. I mean, Texas ran 78 plays last week, and they weren't good offensively. That's, that's 30 more plays. You don't get a lot of plays with this team, to your point, and they'll fight you. I mean, this is a mental focus game for Texas. They're the more talented team, but they've got to get off to a fast start, and they can, as CJ said, Rod, get sucked down into that kind of game, or else, that's exactly where Vanderbilt wants to be.
Yep, you can't allow them to dictate the tempo and dictate the terms of the matchup, and that's why it's strange. I remember we having this very similar conversation about Texas, Michigan, and saying, and even I even brought it up during the Texas OU week and said, if you win the coin toss, take the ball, dictate the terms of the matchup, go take the ball and kind of score. Now, considering Texas has started slow offensively the last couple of weeks, I almost wonder if you want your defense to start, because your defense may set a better tone than you actually could set on offense.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You know what I mean? So, but I do think it's imperative that Texas gets off to a fast start against this group. And for your defense, your defense still the number one defense in the country. You got to get them off the field, because they're fine with just getting 3 yards and a cloud of dust on first and second down, and then getting them to third down. And they'll be like, I'll settle for 3 yards on third down too, because we know we're going for it on fourth down in this situation. And they're a top 15 fourth down conversion team. So you got to be really careful with this group. You got to get them off the field. You got to win early down. You need to get some negative plays, or, some gains of 0 yards or 1 yard on early downs. Your stuff rate's going to be big in this game. Stuff rate is when you stop a player at the line of scrimmage, or for no gain, or for negative yards. Texas stuff rate's going to be big in this matchup. You want to stuff them on some early down runs, and then to get a Pavia into a third and long situation, second and long situations. That way, their playbook, man, it's not cut in half. They got like maybe a fifth of their playbook available if you get them in third and long. They just don't throw it. And their leading receiver is the tight end they also brought from New Mexico. Right? What's his name? It's Eli Stowers. Is that his name?
Eli Stowers. He was a former quarterback, I believe, recruited to Texas A&M. Yeah. Transferred, became a tight end, and now a pretty good player over there for Vanderbilt this year. Yeah. Rod and Aaron, I mean, with a Vanderbilt, they got a unique offense, right?
Oh, yeah, it's challenging.
It's challenging to diagnose originally, and it's even tougher to defend because of what Diego Pavia can do with his legs. And above anything else, he's probably going to be the toughest quarterback Texas has played in terms of extending plays to throw down the field. Mm-hmm. Beck was good. Beck didn't need to really evade pressure. Most of his plays and throws were from the pocket themselves. With Pavia, you're going to have a guy that's going to, in a sense, and he's not this level talent, but he's going to have that Johnny Manziel ability to evade pressure, look down the field, kind of scurry around in the backfield 4 or 5 seconds, and then huck it deep. That's kind of what he's done his entire career. And again, he's only about 5'10". He's a heck of a football player. Texas could get a lick or two on him, but I don't think that's going to deter him too much from doing what he does with his game, because he was an all-state wrestler out of high school. How many quarterbacks do you ever see with that type of background there? But he's a gamer. I think that's the true best definition that you could find to describe the way that he plays football. He's going to make life difficult. And if you don't have contain on the edge, with the way that he's able to evade, get loose, and still create down the field, that could be an issue for the Longhorns this week.
Yep. Yeah. That's why I think it's mental. I mean, here's the thing about Pavia. I mean, I know somebody who knew him at New Mexico State and his family. They're all fighters. They'll get in a bar fight and, pick you back up and have a beer with you. That's just what they are. And if you watch the Alabama game, he's as fearless as they come. That guy does not care. And Alabama was losing their mind, Rod, to your point about they're happy with 3-4 yards. They could not get a stop when they get it to within one score, and they knew they had to get a stop. And of course, when you're Alabama or you're Texas and you're heavily favored, the pressure's on your side and you're kind of overplaying some things. They could not stop that team that night. And they ended up, taking a knee to win the game because they ran out the clock. I mean, against Alabama, for crying out loud. Ultra impressive. And it really starts with Pavia. And the adjectives I think about, Rod, he's fearless and he's not going to flinch. He will not flinch in this game. He's a graduate transfer. He wasn't afraid of Alabama. He wasn't afraid of Kentucky. he will not be afraid that this is Texas. He's going to play, and Manziel's a good comparison in that he's not as athletic as Manziel, but he is going to be hard to bring down, and he won't give up on a play. That's going to be a really – this isn't Carson Beck at all, because Carson Beck's going to probably be an NFL player. This guy is going to be a challenge to, kind of catching that butterfly with your hands and making sure he doesn't extend plays. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Yep. Says, are you worried about
defense?
Yeah, are you worried about A-Hill and linebackers being disciplined enough against Vandy run offense? I think Texas linebackers are in pretty good shape between LaFau and Anthony Hill. They do a great job when they're spying a quarterback. I think they do a pretty good job of that. And I think they'll double spy him, kind of how they did with the Hawkins kid versus Oklahoma. And they'll have two guys on him, not just one spy, because they know he could be a problem in the open field. And I don't think Texas is scared of their wide receivers, right? So you'll probably have a lot of your guys in man-to-man coverage because you're not afraid of their wide receivers. And you'll want your safeties. By the way, we talk about safety because that's going to be a big concern in this game because you're out Derek Williams, no Andrew Makuba. One of those guys is kind of one of your best coverage safeties versus tight ends. And bringing Makuba down. And the other guy, Derek Williams, is one of your best alley cats, being able to play the run from a safety depth of 10 to 12 yards, something like that. So that is concerned. And I think Johnny McDonald, they may just put him in the box if they don't want him coming downhill to try to take those kind of angles to the football. But getting back to it, I do think the defense, as long as you're putting spies on Diego Pavia, you should not have problems covering their wide receivers or their receiving threats down the field. You really got to focus on stopping the run. Their run game is diverse. It has a ton of variety. And it is, like I said, they're using some really creative concepts that really you haven't even seen in the SEC. You know what I mean? Maybe ever. Like they're just very unconventional in their run concepts. So I think Texas is going to have to be buttoned up in their run defense. Now, I wouldn't even expect to see a lot of sub packages out of nickel, and I would expect to see a lot of base. That's what Alabama screwed up with. Alabama tried to match up with them in nickel all the time. Mistake. You need to put your base out there. They're running 30 personnel sometimes with 3 running backs out there. They're running 13 personnel. No. You need to put your base personnel out there, and that would be the challenge for Texas. What's their best base personnel? All right. And honestly, do you need to put a Jahdae Barron at safety if you're going to have your base personnel out there and say, you know what, you're a better safety for us in this situation. You just come down and just make plays on the football. I'm not sure, but base personnel and whoever the best group of linebackers is going to be a real big part of the X factor in this matchup.
It's a great point, Rod. You put Jahdae at safety and let Gavin Holmes play corner opposite Manny Muhammad and see if he can help. And the 3 linebackers are probably LaFau, Benda, and Anthony Hill. Yep. And try to clamp it down. And you're right about Alabama, staying nickel, and they really never made an adjustment. That's what the Bama fans were so frustrated with. There was never they stuck with it. They just felt at some point they'd get a stop, and they couldn't. And Pavia just kept eating them alive with that option. And you said the word unconventional, Rod and CJ. That's really what Clark Lee chose to be, right? I mean, the other part of this is you just don't see it that often. It's that's why it's like a military academy. You're trying to prepare for it in the middle of a season where you're preparing. Now, maybe Oklahoma showed with their limited offense. They showed a little bit of that in the Oklahoma game.
That's true. Yeah.
What Seth Luttrell was trying to do with Michael Hawkins. So maybe they can mimic that and use that a little bit. But it's just something you don't see that often.
No, and CB, I love that comment there. Jahdae Barron, in a big game. All these games are going to be big games. Jahdae stands up tall and 3 picks on the season. He's been tremendous. I actually like that, Aaron, a little bit. Oklahoma was unique in the sense that they showed more rollouts, more natural movements of the pockets than anybody Texas has played this year. The difference between Oklahoma and Vanderbilt at the quarterback position is they'll throw it down the field, right? I don't think Michael Hawkins really attempted anything beyond maybe one pass to the end zone early in the game. That was beyond like 15 yards down the field. Pavia will air it out. And he's been great protecting the football, which is why it's so unique is he throws it deep. He takes some shots, but he never really puts it in harm's way. And that's probably the biggest compliment you could give to a guy that creates off schedule is when you're off schedule, your turnover percentage goes up tremendously. And that's when a team like Texas or an Oklahoma or a Georgia find ways to take advantage with errant plays or plays that aren't off the script. He doesn't do that. And that's where Texas needs to find a way defensively to get a ball away from Pavia or someone on that Vanderbilt offense. With that said, you also have to be wary of his legs because he is a heck of a football player. He's a heck of a runner. He's going to be one of the more unique challenges the Longhorns will face this entire year.
What about the Vanderbilt defense that you've seen, CJ? How can Texas attack them? Obviously, you got to be efficient. Sark talked about every drive is important because you get minimal drives, and taking the ball, those before half and out of half kind of things become important. How do you think you attack this Vanderbilt defense? They are good against the run, but it feels like you should have the explosive athletes outside that maybe they do not have, and that's Bama, as Rod mentioned, scored 40 points on 48 plays. I mean, so you can score on this team.
Yeah, you absolutely can. And if there was ever a moment for Quinn to bounce back, it's against the Vanderbilt defense. Vanderbilt's much better than they've been in the past. That defense is still lagging tremendously. They're at 91st in the country in points allowed per drive. And again, I use that stats a lot in terms of judging the efficiency of offenses and defenses. That takes away garbage time, all right? So Vanderbilt doesn't get a lot of stops, and when they do, it's rare. I'll just leave it at that. Their defense will allow a lot of points. We've seen it against Alabama, even when they're winning games. They're allowing a lot of points. Georgia State, I believe, scored 36 earlier this year in a victory over Vanderbilt. They allow points, and that's one of the big reasons why I'm more optimistic about Quinn bouncing back against this team this weekend. You should see wide receivers and tight ends and running backs in space. You didn't see that against Georgia. Against Georgia, it felt like there was 15 guys on the field, right?
Yeah.
Vanderbilt, you're going to feel like there's maybe 9 or 10, and that should be a way for Texas to get back into rhythm as that third phase of the season gets underway here in about 3 weeks.
Yeah, Rod, their offense is their defense. You can kind of tell, Clark Lee understands where they're at personnel-wise from this conference, so they try to use that offense and that deliberate, way of and style of play to help their defense out when they can. Then hope they can, put a ball on the ground, get a fumble, get a penalty on the other team. That's kind of their goal defensive. You got to feel like.
Yeah, just limit possessions. I mean, that's one thing in this matchup. For Texas, you're only going to have so many possessions to pull away and separate from them. They make sure of that. And the defense can help out, right? If you can get them 3 and out, that's not easy to do with this Vanderbilt team. That's what you need to start counting in this game. How often can Texas just get them 3 and off the field? Because Texas has the best stop rate defense in the college football, right? Nobody has a better defense that gets offenses off the field than the Texas defense. Well, this is one of the biggest tests you'll have all season long because they specialize in staying on the field, keeping the football, and converting the football. So that stop rate, I think Max Olson keeps up with it, does a good job with it. Texas right now is the number 1 in the country. That will be tested versus Vanderbilt. And if you can get them off the field 3 and out, you can get you a few 3 and outs against Vandy. You can pull away from them because that doesn't match their blueprint. That is really kind of against the counter to their model to win, their recipe to win. And so that's why the complementary football that CJ you were talking about earlier this week, that's going to be big in this game because you need the defense to get them off the field, and you're the offense. You need to score, and you need to score touchdowns to separate. And then if you separate, you'll force Vanderbilt to abandon their identity, which you were doing early in the season really well. And then they'll have to throw the football. And they don't want to do that. They'd rather just be able to run the football and control the clock. You get up 2-3 touchdowns on this thing, it's going to look like a very different Vanderbilt offense because desperation will set in.
Yeah, that's the issue. Is the key to the games for Texas over the last couple of weeks has been to start strong, start early, get off to a lead quickly in games, and they've just yet to do it. Mm-hmm. This is one for this game allows them an opportunity to exercise some of those demons and maybe get back to that rhythm that we saw earlier in the year.
Yeah, they got the great start at Michigan and early, and they haven't here in SEC play. That needs to change. And again, to Rod's point, CJ, any negative play is huge for Texas when you're watching this game defensively. If you get a 2-yard loss, I mean, that's huge on an early down. You put yourself in an advantage position. We've all seen this. Think about maybe the Kansas offense in past years in the Big 12. Get them negative, and then you got a chance to get off the field. Hey, Rod, before we get into some, I want your guys' thoughts on the big game down at College Station coming up on Saturday in Missouri and Alabama in the SEC. We'll get some thoughts there. But to tell them about the Carrot Concierge, because, Christmas is going to be upon us pretty quick, and, holiday season, birthdays coming up in the fall, weddings and whatnot. Carrot Concierge, a great, great opportunity and really a super convenient concept.
Yeah, it is. And as a matter of fact, I reached out to the Carrot Concierge myself because we got some birthdays and holidays and stuff coming up. So I suggest you do the same. If you're looking for the right gift for that special person in your life, make sure you check out the carrotconcierge.com. Jody Reynolds is a personal jeweler. She is the Carrot Concierge with an office right there in Westlake. Jody focuses on helping men purchase the special gift for the women in your life. You can use the QR code on the screen right there in front of you. You can see it there, and you can visit her on Instagram as well, or visit her website, thecarrotconcierge.com. Jody prides herself in providing personal service. She takes the extra steps to make sure that your special person gets exactly what they want. And because she doesn't have the overhead of a storefront, she can oftentimes get the highest quality inventory at the lowest possible prices, as much as 30% less than what you'd expect to see at a jewelry store. So if you're looking for that great gift for that person in your life, look no further than the carrotconcierge.com. Birthdays, anniversaries, you got Christmas right around the corner, and with all those holidays coming up, Jody has a variety of tennis bracelets, rings, necklaces, and more, all beautiful jewelry, all personalized for you and yours. And like I said, most of the time she can get these great items, fantastic items, highest quality inventory at the lowest possible price, as much as 30% off. So check her out at thecarrotconcierge.com. Visit our website or give her a call or text her, and she'll take care of you so you can take care of that very special person in your life. Thank you very much to the Carrot Concierge. Oh, just real quick, and I know we had this up, Matthew, so I apologize. I didn't get a chance to get to it. Eric had a super chat here. Thank you, Eric, for it. Appreciate you. Says, what up, fellas? Thank you, Eric, for the super chat. Rod B, what does our drop-off honestly look like if and when we have to put JJR, Jordan Johnson, Rubel, I'm assuming, and Kobe Black on the field more later in the season? Right now, we'll see. I mean, right now, let's have some more injuries in that secondary. I don't know if you have to force those guys on the field, so I'm knocking on wood there. The versatility you have in the secondary, too, also think it helps you. I do anticipate potentially moving Jadae Barron around as a contingency plan if things are not working out with Jelani McDonald there. I think I'd rather have him out there playing safety than I would putting a young buck out there who, really doesn't have the experience yet. Then that would just help his Thorpe Award candidacy, as my man CV said. I said, if you want him to be a finalist for the Thorpe, you start promoting that he's the most versatile weapon or most versatile defensive back in the country. And trust me, that's a great sales pitch. All right, for the Thorpe Award committee that's voting on it. And he's already proven he's one of the best nickels and one of the best slot corners in college football for the last couple of years. Now he's proven that he's the best cornerback potentially in college football for the last couple of years. Let him play safety for a game so they can be like, damn, he's the best safety on the field too. And then we can start that narrative. So that's, I think, where I'd go before I started putting those youngsters like Jordan Johnson, Rebel, and Kobe Black on the field. So I think they're good there until then. But next season, all those young DBs are going to step up because they expect, guys like Jadae Barron. Makuba's having a great year. Makuba's also versatile. If he wasn't hurt, knock on wood, he's not going to play in this game. But that's a guy that plays safety and nickel for you if needed to. So I don't expect them to have to throw the young bucks out there before their time. Right now, it seems like Jelani McDonald. They do like Jordan Johnson Rebel. It seems like he's on a faster track than you. Let me know if I'm off here, CJ. It seems like he's on a faster track developmental wise than Kobe Black is right now.
Yeah, and I think a little bit of that comes with some injuries, right? Derek Williams went down. Now Andrew Makuba a little dinged up. You're expecting to see that next level guy step in, and that's right now JJR at safety. Corner-wise, you're still pretty deep, right? You got Warren Roberson, you got Gavin Holmes, two guys that have been in the system a little bit longer that are sitting on the bench waiting their turn, whereas Kobe Black's still in that second, third unit right now. So he's got to fight those guys for reps when Manny Muhammad, Jadae Barron come off the field, whereas JJR, due to injury, certainly into a position where you're going to see him a lot. I'm expecting him to play this weekend as well a good bit. Yeah, I believe he played 18, 19 snaps against Oklahoma. That was the most we had seen him so far this year. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him upwards of 25 snaps or so against Vanderbilt this weekend.
Yeah. Didn't Taft deal with an injury in that Oklahoma game?
It was a stinger.
So maybe that's why. So maybe that's why he's getting some more reps. Good point.
It was actually the end of the Mississippi State game. I feel like he went out. But
okay.
End of the first half, he limped to the locker room immediately with about 30 seconds left. Right note there, he actually played every snap against Georgia this past weekend.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
he got a stinger at the end of the Mississippi State game, and then he might have got nicked up against OU, but he's back. He should be good. And this will be one of those games, Rob. We know those against that option team that secondary's got to come up and be willing to tackle people.
Oh yeah,
Get
safety's
people on
gonna
the
be big. Listen, you know they're gonna test the eyes of that young safety. Matter of fact, I'd build a game plan around Jelani McDonald. I'm sorry, if I'm Vanderbilt, why not? Right?
Yeah.
You got 2 starting safeties out, and they're gonna put a youngster Jelani McDonald there. Texas defense ain't got a lot of weaknesses. The number 1 defense in the country, but one weakness would be, hey, they're putting in a guy who's inexperienced. I would not doubt if they have some game plan specific stuff just to test the eye discipline of one Jelani McDonald. I would put it in my game plan.
Well, that's where you're Jade Barron with Michael Taft back there. You feel a little bit better potentially. Yep. So we'll see what PK and Johnny Nansen come up with for that game. Guys, real quick before we wrap things up, there are super chats. We will take them, fire them up, and love to have it. But also your thoughts on A&M LSU, the only 2 undefeateds in the SEC at College Station. CJ, what are we feeling on this? LSU's been kind of up and down, but they've beaten Ole Miss and Arkansas back to back and getting better with Garrett Nussmeier.
Yeah, they definitely have. I've been surprised by LSU. I did not expect them to be a team that would be in this conversation right now. I believe they're 5-1, 6-1. They're undefeated in SEC play. Again, I had them as like an 8-4 team for the most part, and they've been surprising. They've overcome a lot of key injuries. On the defensive side of the ball, they lost their star nose tackle, Harold Perkins, out for the year. They're impressing me. Still, A&M feels like they're clicking on all cylinders right now with a good quarterback play. They're scoring points at defense, maybe a little shaky last week against Mississippi State. It feels like everybody Mississippi State is scoring points on except for Texas, but whatever. I'm taking the home team in this game. It just feels like something that, 2 good teams, 2 teams that are fighting for a lot. Home field's going to have a lot of advantage in this game in my eyes.
Yeah, if you go back and watch it, though, Rod, Connor Weigman played terrible against Mississippi State. He was not good in that game. They need him to be better. I mean, we saw it against Missouri. If you get good Connor Weigman, you have a chance because their defense is good. But if you look at his PFF grade and Connor Weigman against Mississippi State, he was not good. And the guy that, as everyone's talking about Quinn Ewers and, Carson Beck kind of losing draft stock, the kid that's rising is Garrett Nussmeier. That guy's playing really good football. He's almost single-handedly beat Ole Miss a couple weeks ago. He was great again against Arkansas. That could, I agree with you about the home field, but might just come down to better quarterback. And Aggies need Weigman to play good against LSU. But and Nussmeier's been outstanding. Also, Missouri, Alabama, Rod, that's almost a losers out kind of game, right? I mean, that's an elimination game, big picture for the playoff and for the big picture things. That's a huge game.
Yeah, and I think I just think I believed in Missouri early, and they proved me to be a fool. I am not going to believe in Missouri anymore, so I'm going to take Bama in there. And Kevin DeBoer is a hell of a coach. I expect them to bounce back. They've had some early ups and downs, of course, with the upset loss to Nat Vandy, but I'll take Kevin DeBoer and Bama there. Getting back to the LSU A&M game, every time I pick the Aggies, every time I pick them, they make me look stupid because they end up losing. and I like, why do I always choose to believe in the Aggies? But it's good when the Aggies lose. So I'm going to go with reverse psychology. I'm picking the Aggies because when I always pick the Aggies, they lose. So I'm picking them, hoping that they're just going to lose and then, make things easier on Texas. There you go. So I'm picking the Aggies.
That's smart. Well, that's the primetime game. Texas 3:15 from Nashville, Tennessee. If you're headed on up there, you're going to have a great old time. It says, guys, I hear JJR is a young leader and dog, mainly worried about with Makuba's injury. Before we wrap it up, CJ, it did sound like to me that Makuba probably be okay coming out of the bye week, right? I mean, they're probably be careful with him this week and then bye, and then for the Florida game in Arkansas, probably be okay, you think?
Yeah, I don't know how much run we'll see from Makuba this week. He was walking very gingerly off the field. Of course, you can double up rest with him due to the bye week after this. I expect that to be the case and kind of the procedure that Texas takes with him, give him that 2 weeks of off time. If he does play, I don't think it'll be any more than about 20, 25 snaps out of pure necessity. But right now, I would be very cautious to see Andrew Makuba on the field on Saturday.
Yeah, it's after the bye, I think it sounded like from Sark this week. All right, guys, awesome stuff. A great Tuesday live chat. We appreciate everybody. Hargrove Roofing, Duck Camp, Carrot Concierge, and Mark Saunders at Allstate. Thank you guys so much, and all the super chats. The conversation never stops on the On Texas Football channel tomorrow morning with coffee and football. all the time and locking it in. Over 62,000 subscribers. Thank you so much. Share it with a friend, and we'll keep rolling on, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you, Matthew. Thanks, CJ. Thanks, Rod. Y'all have a good night.
You too. Hook 'em.
Thanks, Aaron. Hook 'em.